In Houston, officials say a fire that broke out at a mosque on Christmas was intentional. The Houston Fire Department says the fire at the Islamic Society of Greater Houston was not accidental and natural causes have been ruled out. Federal and local authorities are now investigating the fire as a potential hate crime. There have been a rise in attacks on mosques since the mass shootings in California and Paris.
And Stephanie, those attacks worry a lot of parents who send their children to schools that are located inside those mosques. Al Jazeera's Hermela Agari caught up with Muslim American parents and their children dealing with new tensions here in the U.S.
America's a free, marvelous place to be. Endless education in school.
Culture is growing every day. Awesome place to live in.
A third grader writing that in an Islamic school just goes to show that if people actually, went inside a mosque or went inside an Islamic school or got to know a Muslim, they would realize that we're not very different at all.
Atif and Aisha Rahman live in suburban New Jersey with their 3 young sons. She's American-born, he Canadian. Both are Muslims of Pakistani descent and want their kids to grow up with a solid footing in their faith.
The plan was always, when the kids are, maybe 6th grade, right, middle school, we would transition them into a public school.
But now the couple's not so sure. They're concerned about how their sons will be affected by the recent backlash against Muslims following the attacks in San Bernardino and Paris.
For the first time ever in my life, I'm actually kind of taking pause and saying, okay, are we doing the right thing?
I have nieces that are in the public school system. And now a common playground insult to somebody is, oh, quit being such a Muslim terrorist.
But they also worry about their children's safety at Islamic school, which is inside a mosque. According to the Council on American Islamic Relations, this year there have been a record 71 anti-Muslim incidents targeting mosques and Islamic centers.
What I had to worry about as a kid was, if my mom cooked and, I'd go to school and people would say, oh, you smell like curry or something.
Since 9/11 and particularly in recent months, many Muslims in the U.S. say they've had to defend not just their religion, but their very place in America. Farida Osmond and Shafiq Mojdalawiya are college students, born and raised in the United States.
I just thought to myself, this is my home.
After an incident on the subway, says Osmond, for the first time, she didn't feel American.
I hear someone say, go back home, and use profanity towards me. And then when I looked up, I looked down at my chest, and there was a huge wad of spit right on me.
We shouldn't have to change who we are to fit into society if we're in a country where we're so, mixed. There's so many different types of people.
Psychology professor Michelle Fine has spent the last 30 years studying marginalized communities.
What have you observed in terms of how young Muslim Americans react and deal with some of the backlash that we're seeing?
I see the young people as carrying a kind of rich hybridity of faith and what I might call chutzpah, which is kind of Yiddish for courage. When they hear that to be Muslim is not to be American, that has a consequence for feeling quite alienated from your social and political world.
That people can be too Muslim is a concept that Atif Rahman finds offensive.
I have an issue with the term moderate Muslim because I think it presupposes that there's something wrong with the true version of your faith. The San Bernardino attack, right? If you look at the characteristics of how that person is described, so somebody who went for pilgrimage in 2013, who came back with facial hair, Aisha and I look at that and we're like, oh crap, that fits my characteristics.
It's exhausting to be constantly trying to explain or trying to be a model of your faith because you know that the majority of people don't understand it.
Hermela Agari, Al Jazeera, New York.
We are a nation of minorities, and as minorities, you hear the same concerns said generation after generation after generation. It's like, what do we have to do to prove ourselves as belonging here? Yeah. and then when you do, something else happens and you have to prove yourself over and over again.
There's sort of a different vibe around this in Canada, and there another group of refugees is scheduled to arrive today. The family of Alan Kurdi is among those coming to Vancouver. You'll recall he's the 3-year-old boy who died